Welcome to Sports Scouts. I'm Joey Goodsir,
I'm Michael Rope.
and we are recording this, our third episode, on Thursday, March 7th, 2019. The exciting thing about this episode is that it's our first episode with a video option. For those of you listening to the show, just letting you guys know you can also watch the show. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on theforscout.com with our usual posts. It's really not going to change the show that much. It's not going to be that visual of a podcast. It's just going to be, being able to be a fly on the wall for the show and, watch us do the show instead of listen to do the show, whatever you prefer. But, yeah, it's an exciting new fun option, so we'll see how that goes. So today we're going to talk Bryce Harper, NBA playoff pushes, Kyler Murray, and more. But first, Michael will give you some scout scores.
Yeah, so although boys varsity hockey team lost in the first round of the state playoffs to Notre Dame Prep 3-0 on last Wednesday, February 27th. Congratulations to them on a league championship and a great season. And also the boys JV hockey team won against Providence in the Blackhawks Cup Series and will move on to the quarterfinals, which will take place at the Edge Ice Arena in Bentonville on Saturday at 12:20. So definitely be there to cheer on the boys JV hockey team. And also, the boys' water polo is now underway. They lost their first matchup by 4 to Maine West. They will face Highland Park at home tonight at 6 o'clock. And the girls' water polo has their matchup with the Giants at Highland Park tonight, also at 6. And the girls' track and field competed in an invitational at Rolling Meadows on Friday last week and will compete in an invitational at Glenbard North this Friday at 4:30. And the boys' track and field face Downers Grove South at North Central College on Monday. Will be in Plainfield South and North on Saturday at 9 o'clock. And many other spring sports will be getting started in the near future, such as girls badminton this coming Monday and girls soccer at home against St. Viator this Tuesday, and baseball, boys volleyball, and lacrosse is also right around the corner. But last but not least, the LFHS basketball team will be taking on New Trier this Friday at 10 o'clock, so make sure to come to the competition gym to support them.
Yeah, very, very excited for the ELS game that will be on Friday. We'll probably give you some post-game coverage on that for the next Scout Scores segment we do next week. But I would also like to note that girls volleyball is in need of players.
Girls softball.
Yeah, girls softball I meant. And Mr. Kleeman sent out an email recently. So if you're interested, respond to that email. Obviously, students, so that you would have gotten this, or Coach Lindsay Pereira. So yeah, that's kind of the news we have with LFHS sports today. So thanks, Michael. There you go. And if you want more on the latest in LFHS sports, definitely check out the latest articles on the Forest Scout. There's a variety of spring sport previews this week. Boys and girls water polo, girls soccer, boys volleyball. There's a great feature on track stars Ben Rosa and Nate Schmidt. So and if you didn't hear the sport you wanted to hear, or we screwed up somehow, just make sure you send in the scores and informative news to us at sportscoutspodcast@gmail.com as always. That's sportscoutspodcast@gmail.com. And let's move on to national sports. And this is Show Me What You Got. Okay, so I'm going to get started here with my headline, and really my headline, as I kind of hinted at last week, is I'm going to dive into the basically where the Hawks are right now, because the last time we talked about the Hawks, we were getting excited for kind of a random playoff push. And right now things are a lot different. So, I mean, I guess the main thing here is they went on an 8-game win streak, and during that win streak, it was getting pretty excited because they were just outside of the wild card berth, and it was kind of interesting to see because it wasn't something you were expecting out of this Hawks team. And then next thing you know, they end up, once they come out of that nice stretch, they have a bunch of crucial games, and they don't really come out on top in them, and they're falling back, and now they're, last time I checked, nine points out. So, I mean, they're starting to lose hope here really fast, unless they go on some crazy run here. Things are not looking good, which is unfortunate because I hinted at this, that, they were kind of abandoning the tanking ship already and really like they either needed to commit to tanking fully, or they needed to, you know, they needed to actually push it and make it into the playoffs here, and clearly they didn't have enough to do that. And I said I was worried about that as a Red Wings fan because of my experiences with the Red Wings over the last few years, and how, you know, their experiences, their last few years where they weren't really willing to admit that they needed a rebuild, and they hung in this kind of mediocre level. So hopefully that doesn't plague the Hawks for too long, but definitely kind of a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of, like you said, Joey, they kind of put their chips all in the center of the table. They kind of went for it this year, but it really, I mean, it looked like it could possibly happen from being where they started off to the start of the year. It wasn't the best, but then, like you said, that 8-game win streak, they put themselves back in the conversation to make the playoffs. But now, with I think they're 3 games under 500. Are they 27-30?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been disappointing the last week or so. The way they kind of fallen off, and this is kind of their last. We kind of talked about this last week, but this is kind of their last stand with like the core players, we believe, because Taze and Kane aren't getting any younger, and they're having a great seasons. They both are having great seasons. So this is definitely these last couple of games. They needed these games, and they just haven't come through.
Yep, for sure. So Michael, go ahead. What's your headline today?
So this week has been big in the NFL for the franchise tag, and probably a lot of people have seen different teams like the Cowboys tagging Dexter Lawrence and other teams making moves to keep their big ticket item players, whether on offense and defense. But my take on this is I think the NFL should get rid of the franchise tag. I think it's kind of outdated. It started off in, like, I believe 1992 when the Broncos wanted to keep John Elway for another season, but it just shows how the league – but now the league is moved in a different direction. And I'll just I have a good statistic here. Like, in 1992, to keep a starting quarterback, the best – or, like, the middle-tier quarterback only cost $1 million per year, and the upper echelon of quarterbacks made about $4 million. And today, the stakes are much higher. And by keeping a player under the franchise tag, this prevents the player from reaching the open market, like we saw with Le'Veon Bell. He could have got there in 2016 or 2015, I believe, or 2015 or 16 when he was 25 years old, and so 2016, and now he's 27 and he still hasn't reached. Now he finally gets his chance to reach the open market, but it just shows how teams can now abuse the system kind of, and they can keep their players for actually less money now. That was not what it was enacted for in 1992. They can keep them for less money, and they can prevent a bidding war with other teams. So I think this system kind of needs to, once the collective bargaining agreement expires with the NFLPA and the NFL in 2020, this definitely needs to be a topic of conversation, because players like Le'Veon Bell and players and other like receivers, running backs who have shorter longevity at their position need to hit the open market sooner and have the best possible chance to reach the open market.
Yeah, I mean, trade markets are a huge conversation on the show this week across sports, and you know, it's kind of interesting to see the different facets of how players can be traded, how players can be picked up across all the leagues right now. And you know, one of the biggest features of the NFL right now is the franchise tag. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely something interesting that we'll have to look into going forward, as well as, you know, in other sports, because there's a lot of these stories kind of happening right now. So yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to our news. So recently, after our last episode, the news came out that the baseball world was about to explode, with Bryce Harper finally going to reach a deal, and it was with the Philadelphia Phillies. Harper signed a 13-year, $330 million contract, the largest in MLB history and one of the largest in sports history. So, Michael, what do you think this is going to mean for the future of baseball?
Well, we saw once Harper signed, and like the 24 hours after he signed, his number 3 jersey, which he will be wearing this year in Philadelphia, became the top-selling jersey of all time for any player in any sport within 24 hours of launch. This is according to Fanatics. And the previous best-selling jersey launch that Fanatics has seen was LeBron James this past summer when he signed with the Los Angeles Lakers. So I think this is good for the game, because you really don't hear sometimes baseball stars can kind of get lost in other sports such as the NBA or the NFL. And I think this kind of I was surprised to see this, to be honest. Like I wouldn't have
Yeah, it was.
expected.
We were thinking it was gonna fall. It was gonna kind of fall out for Bryce Harper, but this is a big change.
Yeah, so I think this is really a good thing. But I mean, always there's gonna be critics with baseball how the games are so long, and this is always a concern for many. But I mean, this is kind of just the nature of the way the game plays. So if people don't really like the length of baseball games, I mean, that's just kind of their own take on this. But I think overall, baseball has become more popular, and ticket sales have gone up. Like the postseason viewership has gone up, and I think the game actually is in a pretty good spot. We've talked about like the free agency, like and arbitration, how the game's becoming more analytical, but and players aren't too happy about that because the older players are losing some money. But I mean, that just might be the new nature of the game. But I mean, it still shows these top players like Harper. He got the biggest deal of all time in baseball, so it still shows there is still money with these players, and and also will be interesting to see with the DH that's been talked about being in the National League as it's been in the American League for such a long time. But with Harper's length and his contract, it definitely the DH could possibly be in the NL before we know it, before the end of his contract, because it's 13 years out from now. Harper's deal is with the Phillies, so there definitely is a high possibility once he is in his mid-30s that the DH is in the National League, and this really could help him too, and other players that are getting in their mid to upper 30s.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a huge change. Well, it's a huge piece of news for the MLB, and you basically, I mean, touched on exactly what I was gonna say as far as like, it's become way more of a statistical game, but at the same time, it's a lot of just everything is getting bigger as far as just star power, and we're seeing things move in that direction with some really big contracts lately, obviously. So yeah, I mean that's a huge story.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get to our next news.
So, Zion Williamson, he's been the center of attention, of course, in the basketball world, the college basketball world especially, and going into the NBA draft, which is coming up not too long, to be honest. And so, Joey, of course, the Duke almost suffered an embarrassing loss to Wake Forest the other night. So I think it's appropriate now to ask you, so how crucial is Zion Williamson to this Duke team going into March Madness coming up in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about the larger narratives of Zion Benton last week, but I think the big thing,
Zion Williamson.
yeah, of Zion Williamson. Oh my gosh, I've done that twice now. I think the bigger thing about Zion Williamson is, I mean, he no matter what you can say, he has a huge effect on this Duke team, and that definitely shows. And I think that in a college basketball environment where talent is so distributed because there's just so many teams and there's so few players on each team, it's true that even at a powerhouse like Duke, he's going to make somewhat of a huge difference, especially if he's like a generational player. And that's showing off for them, especially because I think this Duke team isn't all that bad without him. I think that it's overplayed to say that they're nothing without Zion Williamson. I almost did it again. I think that for sure, like, he does have an effect, especially when you get used to having him on the team all year. That's the big difference.
Yeah.
Once a star like that is gone for a period of time, that's gonna make that's gonna make a huge difference. Especially just having a star player to lean on, but not necessarily lean on, just rely on for big performance. So Duke is gonna be hindered by this, and they're a good team without him. But
I mean, they still have.
They're not going to be as good. That's for sure.
Yeah, they still have possibly two first rounders in Barrett and Reddish, and also Trey Jones too could possibly be another first rounder. So they definitely have a lot of talent around
yeah,
Zion.
For sure.
So
I mean,
they could still make a deep run without him. But like you said, he is the center of attention, the star of the college basketball world, and possibly without him, I mean, there is a lot of circulation around the team, a lot of distractions. So
yeah, for sure.
With him, yeah, this it definitely takes the pressure off the rest of the team. I think there's less pressure with him on the team than without him on the team, because you're just getting constant questions from the media and the constant buzz of when he's going to return. Is he still hurt? But also another point I want to make is just going into even if they have Zion or not, their three-point shooting has been one of the worst in college basketball. They're 30.7% accuracy from distance, which ranks 328th out of 351 teams in the NCAA, which definitely is a problem for them, I think, going down the stretch here and going into March Madness, as teams we see every year, teams that win are one of the best in college hoops and shooting the three ball. So they're definitely going to need someone to step up from beyond the arc and make some shots. And I had a stat. I think it was only how many teams here. I don't think I put it on here, but it was only a couple teams in the last decade that's won the tournament with over without being over 35% from 3-point shooting. So, and they were only at almost 31% right now. So they're definitely going to need someone to step up if their inside game gets shut down by opponents going into March Madness. So this is going to be one concern, but they definitely can get over this concern because they have so much talent on this team.
Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely something that was close to happening. I mean, they definitely were about as close as you can get to losing to Wake Forest the other day. I mean,
yeah, the ball almost went in and rattled around the rim, so they got
hit
lucky.
every side of the rim.
Yeah.
So I mean, as a college basketball fan who is not a Duke fan and therefore hates Duke, more proof that they're the most evil team out there, but in that they're probably gonna, suffer without Zion. But I mean, Coach K recently mentioned, this was a couple weeks ago. I remember him saying that his favorite or best player on the team was Trey Jones or something like that. And I think that's a big, statement. I think that they have other great players on this team, and they're definitely a good team without him. It's just that the question is really, are they a great team? And so we're going to see how that works. Rumor is he's probably going to be back for the ACC championship next week. So we'll see how things end up playing out with that. So on to our next headline here. So to close out the basketball conversation here, we're going to move into the NBA. And a recent result here out of the NBA was the Boston Celtics beating the Golden State Warriors 128-95. And the Celtics have been really seemingly to be on a recent surge following a low period. Multiple players and coaches are really kind of giving remarks toward the general theme that they're locked in now and they're ready to play. And on the other hand, the Golden State Warriors have kind of had a somewhat mild season, and I guess you would say, compared to what they've usually had. Yeah. So I mean, now that we're kind of in this part of the season here, where it's March, who are your contenders and who shouldn't be considered when it comes to NBA playoff results this year?
Yeah, I mean, first two things. Last night, the Celtics beat the Kings 111-109, and Gordon Hayward he hit the game winner for him, and he's been really solid these last couple of weeks, and he's really stepped up. Of course, he had that catastrophic injury when he first signed with the Celtics last offseason, and he's been a long road back for him to get back to where he was with the Jazz before he signed with the Celtics. But he hit that game winner last night, and he's been a huge part for the Celtics. And if they want any chance to possibly beat a Raptors, a Bucks, one of those two top teams in the East, they're going to need Gordon Hayward to be part of their rotation. And I think we've heard some chemistry problems in the Celtics locker room this whole season, but I think it looks like these last couple of games they've really been playing hard. And with these whole Kyrie Irving rumors that they're better without him, they're with Jason Tatum, he's a better player all around, and they play better with Tatum instead of Kyrie. I think they kind of put these rumors to bed, and they just stayed in-house. Someone, I think, said, look, we have these players on our team, and we need to just play with what we got, and we have a really talented team. And I think they're just kind of shutting out the outside noise, and there's really just they were supposed to be the East favorite going into the season, and now I think they're starting to live up to some of the hype, especially after the big win against the Warriors.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the one thing that I do have to say with the Warriors especially, I think that, there's this narrative coming out with the Warriors, considering their recent result, that the Golden State Warriors are overly confident in themselves and that their past, almost seemingly, unstoppable success has led to basically an assumption that they're going to have results at the end of the year and get to the spot where they need to be, which has recently been the NBA Finals.
Right.
And then that's really when, the big part of their season starts.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they'll still be back.
Right. Really. I mean, but at the same time, I think that, people are asking, like, are they overly confident? And I would say to provide a different perspective, I would say yes, but in a really different way than I think people realize. I don't think it's a conscious, like, we are better than everybody kind of overconfidence that people may have in their head, but it's more just of a passive, like, expectation that things are just going to work out.
I think we're going to see definitely a different team, too, come the playoffs. Right now, they just basically they know they're going to get in. They're just not really – they're not in any position. I mean, rightfully so, I guess.
They're just not really worried.
Yeah, they're not worried at all. I mean, and once the playoffs starts, they're going to be a whole different team that similar to what we've seen in the past.
For sure.
And definitely, yeah. But to get to your question, I guess, one more thing I was going to say was the Bulls last night. That was a huge win against Philadelphia 76ers, 108-107. And Zach LaVine really has been something special these last couple games for the Bulls. And he's really, I mean, I think Bulls fans have, I mean, of course I'm a Bulls fan. I'm sure, are you a Bulls fan too?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we both know that Bulls fans around here, we want to lose to get the top pick, but around the top pick. But to see wins like this against really good teams in the East, and also the 76ers are part of that conversation as contenders. This really has shown the Bulls core, which includes Zach LaVine, Markkanen, and Wendell Carter. He's in there too, like the big three right now in their rotation. But Wendell's been out, of course. But it's been impressive to see how the Bulls have kept their locker room going into March, and their struggles earlier in the first half of the season hasn't overlapped into the second half of the season, and they've stuck together with their roster, and they've believed in themselves, and they've been playing pretty well since the All-Star break.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that as far as the Bulls go, is you want to see them lose. You want to see them lose to Tank right now. But they have, there's going to be some players out of this period that are probably going to make it out into the, into what we're hoping is a bright future. So we want to see a couple wins in here, and when they're wins, we want to see them be good wins like these. Yeah. So it's
not beating like a Hawks. You'd rather see them beat a 76ers.
Right, absolutely. You want to see them. You want to see them. If they're gonna win, they gotta make it worth it and win one of these games for sure.
Yeah.
And so. Definitely, it's that time of year right now where we're looking into the NBA and the NHL right now when it comes to playoffs.
Who are your probably top, like, just give me like your top two in each conference for contenders?
I mean, as far as contenders right now, I mean it's kind of a weird year.
It's been
after,
up and down for, especially in the Eastern
Well,
Conference.
yeah, for sure. It's been a lot more, I would say, at least a lot more up and down than expected. Over the last couple of years, things have been so consistent. It's just kind of it's fun in a way because we hadn't seen this in a while. I mean, obviously coming out, it's just so wild in the East right now. And I think that if the Celtics are playing well, they're gonna be almost unstoppable, at least in my opinion. That they can do very, very, very well near the end of the year and expect some results. That is, if they remain on top of their game. If they don't, they can be as bad as they have been every once in a while. So, I mean, I don't know about that, but yeah, definitely on the East, I would watch the Celtics. If they say that they're locked in, then I would definitely look into that because when they're locked in, they can be really, really good.
But there's still questions, I guess, if they can lock in, but they do have one of the best defenders in the league. Al Horford, he's been solid for a long time when he's with the Hawks and now with the Celtics, and he's really shut down some of the game's best. So if they can keep riding this recent hot streak going into the end of the season, they could possibly upset the one or two right now, which are the Bucks and the Raptors, which too have some really they both have a really good roster. Of course, the Bucks they've been the talk of the East this year, and rightfully so the way they played. But also adding Nikola Mirotic that's been like the golden ticket right now to get them going into the playoffs as the 1 seed. And he's been a great find for that front office, and he's really played well with the Bucks roster.
Yeah, for sure. And then out of the West, I mean, we did talk about the Warriors. I think that the Rockets may not be getting as much credit as they deserve. I think that this is an important year for them, because this is the 1 year where they can seemingly make it out of the West, which is something that's been very, very hard for them to do, because there is Golden State in their way consistently, and I think that they're going to pose a threat, as we said. But I think that, if the Rockets are going to do something significant, then this is your year. This is their, the year. So that's going to be a big team to look into. I mean, right now, obviously, they get mildly talked about, but as far as just simple, like, playoff contention, they should be talked about more, because this is their almost, I want to say, all or nothing year, because they have almost a more open door than usual. Yeah,
so right now they're third in the Western Conference, the Rockets, that is, at 39-25, and they're 5 games back of the Warriors right now, which, of course, they're probably not going to pass the Warriors, but it's been impressive the way they've come alive.
I mean, it's good positioning.
Yeah. I mean, they'll be okay. I mean, they're basically locked for the playoffs. They don't really need to move up or down. But another team that's been very impressive has been the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, for
sure.
They're
only a game out from the Warriors.
That's not
so they're definitely a team that you really wouldn't hear otherwise, being in the West Coast. I mean, I guess the Warriors are still in the West Coast, but of course they have a more much more star-studded cast around them, like Kevin Durant and Curry. But the Denver has gone more under the radar, and they've been a very solid team, and they're definitely a team to look out for.
Highly under the radar. Yeah. So under the radar that I did not notice they changed their logo this past year or so, which is kind of funny. I did see that a couple days ago, and I was like, really? I didn't notice that. But yeah, they are contenders right now, which is something new.
And yeah, so now I guess we'll get into our next story. We're going to switch our gears to baseball here. And so we've talked about the impact of Bryce Harper already with his new deal to the Phillies.
Yep.
The effects are just starting to occur. As Harper said that he would love to team up with Mike Trout once his contract is over in 2 years in Anaheim with the Angels. So Joey, do you think it's wrong for baseball players to be recruiting other players in the league, or do you think it's just more an overblown story and we should just ignore this?
Well, I mean, I think the MLB is absolutely right for trying to get into Bryce Harper and other players' way from starting to do this right now, because I think that the NBA is incredibly marketed, is incredibly well marketed, and I think that, Adam Silver does an underrated job as far as being commissioner, and the commissioners I know most about it, the commissioners I don't like, and he's not on that list, and MLB is not so much on that list right now. And I mean, I think that definitely, one of the things that's plaguing the NBA, though, is that recruitment and is the building of the super teams. I think that that's what's bringing, especially the regular season, bringing them down. And right now with the MLB, it's kind of hard to bring the regular season down more than they already kind of have it seemingly at this point with pace of play and, just the nature of baseball that we've already talked about.
And teams that are tanking, of course. There's
right.
It seems like half the league's tanking at one time, and it's definitely some game in the summer, like especially baseball's like the only game on, and it's
For
just
sure.
it can be boring, I will admit, to watch baseball games if you have Baltimore play against the Yankees, and Baltimore is like 30 games out of first place come like August already. So
right.
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, but for sure. I mean, it's just gonna be. It would be something very negative toward baseball, and I don't think they could stand up to it like basketball has been able to. And I think even basketball's trying to move away from it. And this is kind of the results of this year are kind of showing that, because it's not. The Lakers are not doing what we expected them to do. I mean, even though LeBron had a huge accomplishment last night, passing Michael Jordan in career points is something big for him. The fact is they're still not looking like a good team at all, and they're
probably not going to make the playoffs. Yeah.
Probably not going to make the playoffs for sure. So I mean, that's changing even in basketball. And in basketball, they managed to hold success with that kind of dynamic. With baseball, I don't think that's as possible. And I think that it's right for them to step in the way. I mean, I think the thing that's funny right now is that they're trying to step in Bryce Harper's way here, and he's pretty adamant and vocal about he's gonna like no matter what they say, he's really gonna make contact with Mike Trout and send the word out there to come to Philly, especially with his long-term contract. And I think part of the reason why he's so easily doing that is because he just signed one of the biggest contracts in baseball. Well, the biggest contract in baseball history and one of the biggest in sports history. And he's like, if I can get the best player in baseball on my team for a fine that seems small, especially after I just signed that big of a contract, like he's going to do that easily. So, I mean, with this type of scenario playing out, when we're talking about this level of money and the level of punishment that is given toward this type of behavior, I guess it's going to be interesting to see how efforts against recruiting in baseball will probably change after this kind of plays out. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how this affects. This will affect. It was smart on part of Bryce Harper because it'll affect Mike Trout all year. I mean, really, it'll just be a continuing narrative about his contract is gonna be up, and it's probably gonna be a bigger deal than Machado and Harper combined because Mike Trout is arguably, if not, he's probably the best player in baseball. So
he is, definitely the best, I think, in my opinion.
He is.
Yours too. And also, this is going to be, I mean, I think this actually could be good for the league too. I mean, they probably will deny it, that they don't want other teams to be, or other players on other teams to be talking about different players in different towns, I guess. But I think this could be a good thing that people are really engaged in the game and they are concerned about their players. And I think this is actually could be a good thing that teams are excited to get a possible another game-changing player on their team, and they're invested in their team. So I think this is actually possibly a good thing, like we've seen in the NBA with recruitment, and it's been kind of fun to watch, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we should move into our last story. So as we talked about last week in regards to hand size and shorts, we're going to get into some more serious conversation about it this time around. The NFL Combine took place over the last couple of days, at the end of last week, and obviously the main eye of the media was on Kyler Murray, and some things have actually come out of that, as former GM Charlie Casserly recently reported on the NFL Network, and basically said that Kyler Murray's appearance at the Combine was questionable, if not bad, especially regarding comments which he referred to as the worst he's ever seen out of a top-rated quarterback. And
I'm not buying that.
Yeah, and you're going to talk about that, obviously. Yeah. But his negativity has been combated pretty heavily by other opinions, for sure. So do you think this is something to worry about, or do you think this is something to ignore?
100% ignore. Charlie Casserly, he was 18-46 with the Houston Texans when he was their GM. So clearly his track record has not been great. With not having a winning record, even close to being close to a winning record, as a GM. And there's been rumors too these last couple of days that he didn't really get along too with some of the other executives in the Texans system. So I think these comments, I don't understand these comments. Just taking a shot at Murray, which was really uncalled for. And when I saw this, I really didn't I was kind of confused, to be honest. And I want to quote Murray's agent, Eric Burkhart, who, of course, he's going to be biased towards this guy because he's his agent, of course. But I wanted to say, I wanted to share what he said. So when you slander the character and work ethic of a young man who's worked his blank off his entire life and has done everything right to put himself in the current position, you better cite your sources and come up with a better record in 1846 as a GM of the Texans, and whose own leadership accountability has been questioned by his old bosses and colleagues, as well as the great coach on the planet, Bill Belichick, end quote, Burkhart said. So definitely Charlie hasn't really had the track record in the league that he can be talking on both sides of his mouth to be saying stuff like this, and he really hasn't developed a quarterback too when he was a GM. So these comments, I would just ignore these comments about Murray, and I think he kind of has. And of course he's going to get this kind of criticism. Of course, there's always going to be someone that's going to criticize you if you're so good at what you do. But if I'm him, I would just completely ignore this. And there's teams that adored him at the combine, and they want him to be on their team. So this is just some outside retired GM that's just spewing his mouth, I think, and it's just I really wouldn't worry about this at all.
I think that there's some direction to why he's saying it. As far as like, I don't think it's something that teams or any of us should rely on at all. And the reason why is because I think this is definitely the time of year where narratives pop up to reporters, and it happens to even the best of reporters at times during this part of the football season here, during this part of the cycle, where teams are going to try their hardest to get the headline that they want to come out.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that there's probably some outside motivation that made him say this. Some team trying to make him say this so that this team would not pick him, and then they might pick him or something. Sure. I feel like there was something of that nature that was happening. Dan Patrick talked about that on the Dan Patrick show. I mean, he also did bring up the part of it that there was also talks about his height being inflated, and I think whether these things are true or not, I think that when you throw that in there too, I think that there's some aspects of truth that kind of like glorify that statement, but so many aspects of just falsehoods in there that just don't make it reliable.
Yeah.
I think that there's definitely some outside motivation that people there's embellishment and there's some outside motivation that I think that Charlie Casserly may have had here in this time of year where that's really common. So I mean
definitely.
it's definitely important as a sports fan when you go into these draft periods to focus on the headlines that you're getting, because teams are going to want – this is the time of year teams are going to want to make the headlines what they want, and they're going to do everything in their power to set their narrative. Yeah,
that's a really good point. So we're going to move on now.
They Don't Scout Like This. It's coming up right here. Okay, so with They Don't Scout Like This, we're going to talk about the AAF finally in full. We're going to have a big full AF conversation here. So, I mean, obviously, if you don't know what the AAF is the Alliance of American Football. It's a new football league that was started this year, and it's going on right now, and it's provided an interesting place to consume the sport for football fans at this time of year when they're obviously lacking it right now, but also providing kind of a testing ground for some new rules, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about, and we're just going to kind of go through the rules here and see what we think about them and what to expect out of them going forward. And the first one that I want to bring up is the idea that there won't be kickoffs in the AAF. So, Michael, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the AAF could be like the more, progressive and innovative league, compared to the NFL. I mean, I guess we've seen a lot of relevant players that either haven't worked out or past, their prime that teams have thought in the NFL. We've seen a guy like Trent Richardson that was a big disappointment when he was a first-round pick, and he was just a complete disappointment when he got drafted by the Browns. Then he went to the Colts, but he was a huge disappointment, and he's been fairly successful in the AAF. Of course, it's a less competitive league than in the NFL, but I mean, this could be for guys to, redirect their careers to get possibly back on track to be going to the NFL, which is the top of any football league in the world. So I think it's been, I think some of these rule changes, like you said, without kickoffs, it kind of shows. I mean, I guess if people are if they don't like it or if they do like it, I think the NFL could take this as just like a survey, I guess, kind of just to implement this in their own game, and this could be.
I think that's definitely possible.
So this is definitely very interesting, I guess, news. But I think, and it's been fairly successful too. I think the AAF, and I guess it's just gonna keep expanding.
Yeah, for sure. As far as kickoffs, I think that it's I don't know if it's good or bad or not. And, just as a football fan, it's a part of the game that is, the bread and butter of the game. And so I have a comfort toward it that,
I like it too. Yeah.
right, that like,
Changes games.
well, I mean, it's an important aspect of the game. So it would be very, very hard to just remove it, even considering the safety aspects of it that would make people remove it. So having the AAF, you can make these changes, and it won't be as big of a deal because now we can actually see how that will work, and then maybe it'll end up going into the NFL. But it's something interesting, and that's why we'll have to really wait and see here. So far, the AAF has done pretty well, especially with its as you said, stars that didn't necessarily play out. I mean, for me, I would obviously add Denard Robinson to that list for sure. I mean, he helped me make it through a pretty dark period of Michigan football, that lots of people forget and complain about Harbaugh. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Carson. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, Denard Robinson's in the AAF, and it's kind of cool to see him on the field again. I think that lots of these kind of fallen out stars are kind of going to be looked at in these kinds of leagues. And it's a good place to test out these rules. And
so players,
it's done pretty well.
They can build up their resume, and also the league can look at, the NFL can look at this as data for in the future if this is something that they need to look at kickoffs. Of course, the injury concern is why this has been brought up. Player safety, of course, is a big problem a big topic of conversation, and a possible. And of course, concussions are been a problem in the league, and if they can just use this as data. I mean, it doesn't really hurt, I guess. And I think, of course, special teams has been around since it's just part of the game. I mean, it would feel weird to have an NFL game without having the kickoff aspect and return aspect of the game, the whole special teams unit. So I would not be a fan of something like that would happen, and I'm sure the majority of the football world there'd be a lot of backlash for that.
Yeah,
and it's completely different. It's a different league than the AAF, and I guess you can still look at it. I mean, if players and executives think this is the right move in the future, then I mean, heck, I guess you might maybe you do make a change, but right now you can't do any sort of significant move.
Yeah, I mean, the other aspect is no extra points. I mean, I think that's that also plays to the same part of kind of changes in special teams that we're already talking about. I mean, in my opinion, it's probably going to end up being somewhat positive, because I think the only reason why we still do the extra point is just because it's just kind of routine, and it's just part of the way the game plays out. But if we could remove it, and I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. I think that it'll be something that we could eventually get used to. So
would help the Bears this year.
Yeah, it would, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, they need to somehow, some way
they
pick
signed
up Robbie Gould
yesterday.
Who did they say?
It was a kicker from Pittsburgh. His name was Chris Blewett. That is probably at the worst time, the worst name that you could have signed for the position of a kicker.
Yeah, I mean,
off the parky.
I love the concept of player last names. That's one of my favorite things. Like every single year, it's become more of a thing now where recruits, like on National Signing Day, they do like an all last name team. And that's kind of been a more and more popular thing. I love that. There's definitely lots of good names for football that I've seen, but that's definitely not up there. So yeah, yeah, for sure. And then so as far as the other rule changes here, I think the biggest one probably is that the play clock is going to be shortened in the AAF, and that's going to obviously make it a faster game. So what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's another implement that the NFL can look at. I think, I think the league right now is in a pretty good spot. I mean, with the play clock, and I don't know. I don't really know like how much. You know how much they're going to be shorting it, like a 5 seconds, or Joey, do you know how much? I guess it could. I'm not sure, but
yeah, I'm not sure. Hold on, let me check.
Yeah, you can check that out.
As I said, I haven't watched too much of the AAF lately. I'm actually excited to get into it.
Yeah, but if it's anything like significant, then that could be a problem in the NFL, because of course always trying to scheme, I guess, against
35
opposing defenses.
Let's see. Hold on.
Yeah.
Here. Yeah, but I mean, regardless, I think if it's any time it's gonna be a big difference because in the flow of the game, it's basically
I mean, there always is.
every second.
It's not like that. There's never a delay game in the NFL. It happens quite often. So like, if you were to
so it's down to 35
down to 35
as opposed to
the
40 seconds.
Yeah.
And basically the theory is, with doing the math, it could end up shaving like a half hour off of like a 4 hour running time that we're seeing out of the NFL lately, as opposed to just simply removing the crazy amount of commercial breaks that exist. I mean, I don't.
I mean, I guess I really, it doesn't seem like a lot, 5 seconds, but if you watch any football game, you could tell like 5 seconds. I mean, it does matter. I mean, because of course, you don't have all 40 seconds. You're in the huddle, of course, and breaking the huddle and getting to the line. So there's definitely a lot of time lost there. But I mean, also I don't really think it's that necessary in the NFL because just so we kind of talked about, but.
I think it's just a cheap way out of them.
Yeah,
not
to cut time. I mean, that's really
to cut time.
That really is not a problem
that
in the NFL,
they could so easily cut with removing commercial breaks. And I don't know if I've talked about that in the show, but this is a huge issue.
It's so long
for the NFL and for college football especially. As you know, I'm a Michigan season ticket holder who's been going to games my whole life, and this year was the first year where I was legitimately sitting in the stands and consciously noting the amount of commercial breaks that were happening.
Yeah.
And when you're at a game, I mean, any real game experience, when there's commercial breaks, you're really not paying attention to, like, you're not paying attention to that. You don't really notice that because there's other things to entertain you, I guess, during those commercial breaks. But eventually, if that facade will fade off after, a couple times, and, they've really kind of, I guess, football as far as the NFL and college football is really, in my opinion, I guess, kind of taking advantage of the diehard fans that they have, like me and you, who they know they're just going to watch anyway.
Yeah, they'll suffer through the commercials.
They'll suffer through the commercials and they'll complain about it, but they're still going to come back to watch it, and it's smart because it's true. But
it's more money for the league, and
at the same time, it's annoying. So I mean, I don't know about the new play clock. But then the last thing is some changes to the overtime format, which I am a lot more positive toward, although I would like to simplify it with the NFL and just have them go the college route. That's just my honest opinion, because I just enjoy the college overtime a lot more than the current NFL overtime, and I also don't like the concept of ties in American sports. But I mean, it is something new to talk about, and I think the common opinion is that NFL overtime does need to change in some fashion.
Yeah,
so.
like the NFL is the only sport that really has a tie. I mean, in sports, like if you look at baseball, they'll play until like 3 a.m. if they don't have a winner in any game. So, and of course the NBA, we saw the Bulls this last week against the Hawks. They went into 4 overtimes, and that game went way over what was a normal length duration of a basketball game, and it was really exciting to watch. And I think, like you said, the college football overtimes are really fun to watch.
They're a ton of fun. I love it so much more than the NFL.
Yeah, and that'd be very more riveting for fans, I believe, and they want to get that extra touch of innovation, I guess, in this new league, or in the NFL, to stay like original and keep on improving the game. That would definitely, going to the college format would be, I think that's probably the best solution, I think, to get a winner each week in the league.
I mean, in general, you just two things. I feel like the two things that they have to work toward are less ties and less reliability on the coin toss. Those are the two things of the overtime format currently in the NFL that I do not like.
That always brings up.
That's always controversial, especially with some certain situations with the proceedings of that actual coin toss.
Like the Chiefs-Patriots game. That was huge.
A couple years ago, I remember watching that live. That was crazy because I remember complaining about NFL overtimes and how it relies on the coin flip while it was happening, and then that happened. So I mean, they can
totally eliminate all those.
It's gonna be an interesting change for sure. But yeah, so the AAF is something that's going on right now, and people are enjoying. I'm excited to watch more of it. I'm enjoying it. And I'm still gonna continue calling it the AF, but I say that positively because it is a great addition to football. And then I guess new leagues are a common thing because the XFL is coming soon with some new coaches being hired here. Obviously, the big one here in Chicago is that Mark Trestman was hired to be the head coach and GM of the Tampa Bay XFL team. They'll probably roll out names for these teams later. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of a big thing because even though he's seen kind of a lack of success in the NFL, he's seen some success in other football leagues. So, I mean, that there's kind of that positive trend, I guess.
He's won 3 Grey Cups in Canada, which is the Super Bowl equivalent in Canada. In the
More
CFL.
on the CFL later.
Yeah.
Spoiler. Yeah.
And he's been – I have it here. Oh, hold on. I have it here that when he's been in the NFL, he's been in 2000 and let me get to some of his bigger jobs. 1989, he was a coordinator for the Cleveland Browns, and he's been in the league, head coach in Canada, the NFL, been coordinators for other teams like the Raiders, the 49ers. He's been the Bears head coach. He's gone to Toronto, won a CFL there, was at North Carolina State in college, was at on the Cardinals. So he's been around the league for a long time, and I think it's easy for Bears fans to just say, "Oh, Mark Trestman," and to start laughing at Mark Trestman, and then rightfully so. I mean, it was a huge disappointment how he fared in Chicago. He had an 8-8 year in his first year, and then it was just a nightmare after that. And I mean, that's kind of rightfully so. I mean,
For sure.
No one was very happy with the way that turned out. But I mean, credit to him though. Like he's really actually had. You won't hear this really in too many places. He's actually really had a successful career, and many people really won't look at like his body of work that he's had in the NFL and the CFL and the college level. He's been around for a long time, and clearly he's doing something right.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, the coaches in the XFL are interesting because also the name I want to point out is Pep Hamilton was hired as the GM and head coach of the DC team, and although he's had some NFL experience, and I did like him, even though he was probably diminishing to some of the qualities of Michigan football's offense over the last couple of years, that he was on that coaching staff. I think he's a decent coach, but it's really, really weird to see them put Pep Hamilton in an XFL position because I think the main angle of the XFL is obviously going to be entertainment. You want it to be exciting, and I don't know, based on some of Pep Hamilton, at least his play calling with Jim Harbaugh, I don't know if it brings that because unless you want to see a bunch of running up the middle in the XFL, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
so it's interesting to see the coaches that we're getting here.
Yeah, these new leagues, people are going to want to see, I think, a lot of points. It's not really going to be a defensive showdown like we see in the NFL quite often. But
yeah, for sure.
I think I really haven't watched either. I haven't really watched like any of these two leagues at all, but I think it's definitely worth watching. Like we talked about, a lot of these big names that we know from the NFL and the college level are now getting their shot in a different league, and good for them. And also, it could be exciting to watch. And a lot of these new rule changes too will be interesting to see if this is something the NFL can pick up one day.
Yeah, for sure. So there's our They Don't Scout Like This, and we're gonna move into your scouting. The big conversation with your scouting is that's obviously grown into a big segment of our show. It's been something exciting that we've had here, and really, it's something that we're excited about that's growing. So we want to make sure it continues doing that. So make sure to send in your scores. Your questions. Well, do send in your scores. I did talk about that, but make sure you send in your questions for your scouting. For the upcoming week, every week, make sure you're calling into 224-544-9330. Continue doing that because it's been awesome. But here is our first call.
Hey guys, I'm a big fan of your show. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the upcoming CFL season? Who do you think's going to win the Grey Cup? Anyway, have a good one.
So obviously Shaw, by the way. Okay, so the CFL. We were just talking about the CFL, but I think as far as the CFL, as a guy who mainly loves college football, who also loves hockey, I think I've too much of my Canadian sports, I guess, has come from a hockey angle, so I don't get to appreciate the CFL as much
same here.
as I should. But there is a big story coming out of it as of last week, which was the big American connection that was bound to be brought up has now had a new news story, which is obviously Johnny Manziel. And the big news with Johnny Manziel is that he was released for violating his contract, and the CFL completely banned him from signing with other teams. So he's basically out of the CFL. And I guess, for me at least, this is just continuing kind of the same things that we've always been seeing from Johnny Manziel.
Typical Johnny.
Yeah, just basically what he's typically been doing. So now it goes into the CFL, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a rough ride for him since the Heisman Trophy. I mean, he's always been known as the outgoing personality and the crazy partier that just can't seem to control himself. And I guess that's kind of been it's derailed. He's a really talented guy. I'm not gonna lie, but it's really just derailed his. The off-field stuff has really just derailed his whole.
It's derailed his whole career from the NFL to the CFL, and now he's out. Now it's like, where do you go next? I mean, there are other leagues popping up, so maybe there's that. Maybe that'll get some viewership, but I mean, otherwise, I don't know.
I think an executive said though, I'm not sure if it was the XFL or the AAF, that right now they weren't looking into Johnny, but I mean, who knows, that could change.
I wouldn't if I were them.
Yeah,
I mean,
all the extra, I guess, baggage that he brings with him.
Yeah, I think the baggage. I think there's other players that could bring in that type of viewership, at least in my opinion, that are
in it for the right reasons, I think, too.
Yeah, that are in it for the right reasons. And that they're gonna bring eyes because of those things, but it's not gonna affect them too badly. I would definitely, if I were them, I'd definitely look into Tim Tebow, because I feel like that would draw some eyes. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see what he's doing as far as, because there's baseball going right now. But in the future, he definitely might be someone to look at. But yeah, as far as CFL, I mean, in general here, my favorite team is the Saskatchewan Roughriders, so hopefully they have a good season this year. But yeah, it'll be an interesting fight for the Grey Cup this CFL season. And let's pull up our next call here.
Hey guys, long-time listener, first-time caller. I'd like you to power rank every single MLB player based on walk-up songs and bat flips. It would be great to hear your insight, please and thank you.
All right, so yeah, MLB Batflips and walk-up songs here. I don't know if we have enough time in this show to power rank every single player, but I do think it brings up an interesting conversation about especially bat flips, I guess, and kind of the evolving of what's, the unwritten rules of baseball. So, I mean, Michael, obviously, as a baseball player, you probably have opinions on this, but, I mean, as far as, like, what do you think is the deal with bat flips and with, kind of the evolution of that so far at this point?
I think this is a fun – it can be seen by the older generation, I guess, as more of like a showboating kind of deal,
sure.
But for this newer generation, I guess it's been a fun addition to the game, and it's just bringing more life to the game, I think. And I think some of the best ones I've seen, of course, is Anthony Rizzo being here in Chicago.
For sure.
And I'm not really too sure the rest of the league, other teams, like the other songs, but
yeah, I mean, as far as walk-up songs, I mean, the thing that comes to mind, at least notably, is back when Starlin Castro was playing for the Cubs. That
awesome.
was huge.
Yeah,
that was a huge aspect of the game
against the Cardinals. That game, the crowd was just going nuts. That game, that was awesome to see. But yeah, it's been fun for fan bases around the league. They've kind of come close to their players just with a walk-up song like we've seen with Anthony Rizzo. So
yeah, I mean,
more of like a team, an individual team thing. I think more.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
it'll be interesting to see how this evolves. I think that, in Japan, I think the thing that people, I don't know how many people have cited this, but it's been something to look into. In Japan, bat flipping is like an art that's encouraged in that baseball league. So it'll be interesting to see how the MLB kind of modernizes. I would encourage bat flipping to be pushed more and more in a more accepted direction, as long as it's not done in an effort.
Your bat to the dugout or something.
Right, as long as it's not an effort of showboating, and we'll see. That'll probably start happening if it gets encouraged, and there'll be a pushback. But I think eventually it'll be a positive development of baseball, because I think people would be looking forward to seeing that type of thing and continuing to keep baseball an exciting game. And I think that if we're going to change things about baseball, it shouldn't be actual mechanics and rules that make the game important. It could be things like bat flips that are just like these additional things that can be more and more brought into the sport.
Right.
So, yeah. So here is our last call.
Hello. The year is 2019, which marks the 100-year anniversary of the 1919 Black Sox Scandal, where gamblers allegedly paid players of the Chicago White Sox to throw the World Series against the Cincinnati Reds. And these players were faced severe punishments, including Shoeless Joe Jackson, who was banned from ever entering the Baseball Hall of Fame. Despite him playing well in the series, he batted over 300, and I think it's just kind of BS that he's been banned from the Hall of Fame when he's clearly one of the best players in MLB history. Hot take, he's better than Babe Ruth, but I digress. So let me know if you think that they should lift the ban on Shoeless Joe Jackson and get him in the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
So this is a big anniversary that I don't think that many people are talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big legendary aspect of baseball history. I mean, it's really the background story that sets up one of my favorite movies of all time, which is Field of Dreams.
That's probably my favorite movie too.
It's one of the best. One of the only movies that can actually make me cry. That's such a great movie. But yeah, I mean, it's a big anniversary, and kind of seeing how it's regarded in history. I think that it's still held in infamy. I mean, at least in my opinion, I think that we're eventually going to see Shoeless Joe get inducted in some type of way. I don't know if he gets inducted, but I think he might maybe not get inducted, but get recognized in some type of way that's kind of just an induction without actually calling it an induction. And so that'll be crucial. But yeah, I mean, I think that we'll probably see some type of celebration of his career at least. I don't know, as far as this White Sox team in general, I don't think so necessarily, because there definitely was some throwing of that series. But
he is kind of a forgotten player, but also
right. I think he'll probably be a little bit more recognized than he was.
Yeah, but I mean, also on a legal level, I guess gambling in Major League Baseball has become a big thing.
It's become more and more,
with DraftKings, I guess, and other sports too.
Evolution of sports.
It's been fans.
The Vegas Golden Knights exist now. It's a different world than it was.
It is definitely it's a big I guess way for fans, I guess, to be more engaged in the game, I guess, and and other fans, if they want to be gambling, they can look at the game in a different light, I guess, and just take a whole different lens at the game. And I mean, it's definitely taken off on a legal level, of course, not with players gambling, of like Shoeless Joe, like how Carson mentioned how he wants to lift that ban, I guess, on him. But yeah, it's definitely been overall in baseball and other sports, it's been a impressive way to increase, I guess, the viewership of games and bring more money into the game.
It's something completely new. I guess 100 years does a lot. But yeah, so anyway, those are your scouting. Make sure you continue sending in your questions. We'll make sure to get to them. They start some fun conversations. So we're glad that's continuing. So we're going to move into Just Wait Till Next Week. Okay, so basically to wrap up the show here, we're going to talk about the things that we're going to talk about in the show in the future. And for me, the big thing is conference tournaments in college basketball are coming up. We're really going to get into, Selection Sunday is next, not this coming Sunday, but next Sunday. So, I mean, we're really going to get into that conversation. We got, as we've said before, we have a lot of big plans for March Madness. So, it's kind of just winding down into that. So, so just get ready for that. And then also there have been reports that Antonio Brown is going to potentially have his trade done by Friday. So that, we're kind of holding off on covering that yet, because we know that if that's true, the news will come in, and that'll definitely be a main story next week. But yeah, so Michael, what are you looking forward to?
Definitely, of course, college basketball. We got Champ Week coming up next week, and college basketball. This is the big next couple weeks for college basketball. This is what people watch for all years for the tournament heading and Champ Week, Selection Sunday, all that good stuff involved. So it's gonna be very fun to, like every
Can't
year,
wait,
to just sit down and watch college basketball.
It's one of my favorite times of the
the
year in
best,
sports. Yeah.
Especially over spring break too. Like you
Yeah,
just can
for
sit
sure.
down and just watch games all day long.
Yeah, for sure. That first weekend is one of the best times in sports.
It's awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's all we got today. So congrats for sticking through once again, listening to this whole thing. We appreciate that. We are actually now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Breaker, Pocket Casts, RadioPublic, and there'll be more coming soon. But we're actually on all those platforms right now, so make sure to get out there, whichever one you prefer, whichever one's easiest for you, that you actually listen to your other podcasts. If you listen to other podcasts make sure to get on there, hit that subscribe button, give us some positive reviews here, because we're going to try to make this show grow, especially with this new video format. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, and we'll start that too. And yeah, it'll be exciting here. So definitely look out for that. And as usual, just looking at the Forest Scout here, a lot of good articles. Big one was Shaw had one out on Antonio Brown and the Bears. There are some new podcasts popping up. First episode of The Hut came out yesterday, which is more just kind of a Lake Forest High School, just general kind of. It was pretty funny. It was a good podcast. And then Top Tens with Stephen Young and Michael Vallone, kind of sports oriented, but it's probably gonna morph into whatever it morphs into. But yeah, look into that. There's other podcasts coming out, so that's kind of cool.
There's always a lot of good stuff, new material coming out, so keep an eye out for that.
For sure. And as we said, March Madness is coming soon. Email us to get some guests on this show. We're looking forward to some exciting shows surrounding March Madness. So yeah, so get ready for another episode of Sports Scouts next week. And in the meantime, we'll keep on scouting. I'm Joey Goodser.
I'm Mike Earl.
And we will see you next week.